So today marks World Children's Day. It allows us to think about and put into action measures for a better future for every child. But how? How do we get to that better future? By knowing your rights, perhaps? Do South African children know their rights? The South African Constitution's Bill of Rights, Section 28, it talks about the rights that children have. I have it in front of me here. Let's go through it. It's an important document. It's important to understand what we're talking about here. So, the Section 28 of the Bill of Rights talks about children. Every child has a right to a name and a nationality from birth. Important. Family care or parental care, or to appropriate alternative care when removed from the family environment. This is key, and it's not always happening. Basic nutrition, shelter, basic healthcare services, and also social services. To be protected from maltreatment, neglect, abuse, and degradation. So that is some of the rights that we have as well. Also, to be protected from exploitative labor practices, not to be required or permitted to perform work or provide services that are very key, inappropriate for a person of that child's age, or place at risk the child's well-being, education, physical or mental health, or spiritual, moral, or social development. So those are some of the key issues. Another one, not to be detained except as a measure of last resort, in which case, in addition to the rights of a child enjoys under sections 12 and 35, the child may be detained only for the shortest period, appropriate period of time, and has the right to kept separately from detained persons over the age of 18. And lastly, to be treated in a manner and kept in conditions that take account the child's age, have a legal practitioner assigned to the child by the state and at the state's expense in civil proceedings affecting the child if substantial injustice would otherwise result, and not be used directly in armed conflict, and to be protected in times of armed conflict. Very important issues, especially when we're talking about the African continent. All right, let's highlight some of the critical issues affecting children. We're now joined by the clinical director at the Teddy Bear Clinic for Abused Children, Dr. Shahida Umar. Doc, thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you.
Important day. I've outlined some of the rights that children enjoy here in South Africa. Do you get a sense, though, that children have a sound understanding of their rights?
So thank you for that question. I mean, I think you've articulated the rights of children, which is what we are seeing is an ideal platform, and which is something so beautiful and, of course, promotes the best interests of the children. But what we are finding on the ground as we speak is actually contradictory to what is, what children should be receiving. And if we're looking at the awareness of children's rights, some children, I think there's pockets of children that are aware of their rights, and there are majority, the masses, who are not aware of their rights. And even those that are aware of their rights actually do not find opportunities or mediums through which they can access any kind of support, intervention, or recourse to what they've suffered or, what has been inflicted on them. So that is the harsh reality. Yes, it's, International Day of Children, World Children's Day. It's 67 years since it was implemented in 1954 in Switzerland. How far have we come? Yes, there has been progress, but is the progress sufficient and adequate? Yeah. Is it looking to protect children, to promote their rights, to help them grow and develop to their fullest potential? Unfortunately, not. We talk about modern-day slavery. We're talking about children not being trafficked, children not being exploited in terms of child labor, the physical abuse, the sexual abuse, the emotional abuse, and also failing children. We look at this latest issue where a mayor has been appointed in Canaland, and he was convicted of child rape and more than one incident. So how far have we come in terms of children's rights?
I was reading the Childline website, and it puts it nicely when talking about Know Your Rights. It says, when we are born, we know what we want straight away, isn't it? We know that we want a nice hug and love from people we are close to. And we know that we don't want to stay hungry. We know that we want all of this from our family and friends. But what we want isn't always what we get. And that is why it isn't so important that you learn from a young age what your rights are and responsibilities are. How can we better teach our children, Doc, about their rights?
Well, I think there is some progress, and it's not sufficient, where children's voices are platformed, where children need to participate, an active participation. The Children's Parliament, which has been orchestrated under the umbrella of the Department of Social Development and the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund. I think those are some of the platforms that are moving in the right direction. Of course, it's not sufficient. We need to reach out more widely to all children, engage with children robustly, and of course, listen to those voices, because often children are being hurt. They're not being heard. And that is how we need to hear from children themselves. What is it that they need? And also the impact and the effects of everything that is affecting them. As we speak, we know that 600,000 children in South Africa on a daily basis are suffering from food insecurity. I mean, this is shocking. And if we just look at 82% of children have either witnessed some form of victimization directly or indirectly, 42% are victims of some or other form of abuse. So we need to go back to the roots, go back to the basics and get children to articulate, to express, and to listen to them, and to mobilize and translate that into action. And of course, on different levels, every government department, civil society, community-based organization, faith-based organizations need to stand together to reach out to children at grassroots and work towards what is best for children, hearing from children what they would like to see happen. We've done so many studies with children around their fears and concerns and worries, and many of the concerns are around their future, the present and the future, their education, their families, the poverty, the unemployment, and the violence, because they are surrounded by violence. And we find, you mentioned earlier about bullying and about physical abuse. Violence begets violence. And I mean, we cannot improve if we do not actually listen to children.
Right. Let's talk about bullying. Unacceptable, but still happens. So prevalent in so many schools. What can we do to put paid to this? And what are some of the signs that parents need to look out for?
So what can we do? I think, as I said, this is a systemic issue. So on different levels, because children are microcosm, they are a reflection of society. They just learning what they see, what they observe, and live according to that. So they learn how to problem solve, conflict resolution, and aggression becomes the mode of operation to resolve problems. So what are the telltale signs? I think the telltale signs are, we would find that sometimes we often see at schools where children are violating other children, and we know that more than 42% of children are acting out against other children simply because of being affected by violence. And what they do, that we've had recent incidences where children have also used scissors to stab other children, knives to stab. So children's behaviors that one needs to look out for is the dramatic changes in behavior, where a child may be quiet and reserved and suddenly becomes outwardly extroverted and starts bullying, but bullying by physically fighting or using abusive language, becoming verbally abusive, also being disruptive within the school context, not following instructions, school participation may drop, where the academic performance would also drop. So there are many signs, and of course one doesn't look at it in isolation, but in context. But parents need to look out for any change in behavior which they see is out of context, and then the pattern, duration, frequency, and severity of those behaviors are critical.
Another issue that children are no doubt grappling with. 2 years ago, many of us didn't even know COVID-19 existed. We are learning more and more every day about the deleterious effects of this disease. Parents want a clear understanding about the current COVID-19 transmission and the severity of the virus in children. But how do you think children are coping during this pandemic?
Well, many children are not coping. And I think simply due to the fact that the information that is conveyed to them, they are bombarded with explosive images on media, everything around them, and then the conversations and dialogues that surround them. It's about death and dying and the morbidity and, of course, the uncertainties around future. Many have lost significant others. So a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, and the lack of stability in their lives, where children have suffered not only from, and there's multiple losses, so losses of education, which is key, losses of things that they were used to before, the routine that existed in their lives, which formed part of their stability. And as we also realize that 13 million children in South Africa, but around 8 million children have suffered as a result of food deprivation. So what we've dealt with in terms of our clinical cases, where we've seen attempted suicides, suicides of children as young as 10 years old, but also children acting out, becoming now violent children, becoming disruptive, children not coping with their school, children who were previously able to deal with daily functions, now not sleeping, not eating. So there are many challenges which we need to take cognizance of, that we need to communicate more with children, provide them with correct information, provide them with support and interventions where possible.
Exactly. And look, you may be going through a difficult time, but always know that there's help out there. Reach out to somebody.
Indeed.
Dr. Shaida,
and I think
yes, go on.
I just want to leave with a message of hope that provided there's immediate support intervention, if people reach out to mental health professionals, children can bounce back. Children are resilient.
Yeah. No doubt. Dr. Shahida Umar, Director of the Tedbe Clinic, you are value-added and a plus to the audience. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll get you more news next. Stay with us.